And yes, I think try and get this on full screen. That's what I wanted. Good.
Hang on, I'll just spin you around so you can see some of the people. You feel like you're talking to someone.
Well, hello, someone. It's good to see you. I'm a long way away, and I've got 10 pages of notes here, which are also up on that link that that Andrew possibly got you to pick up. So if anybody wants to see how much material I've got, look at that and quiver. There's too much, far too much. The beautiful thing about us being short of time is that I can now go a lot faster because I can pretend that there's no problem with that. So I'm going to go through this like lightning. This is going to be just a little rant that puts you in a place where I hope you'll have a choice that you can take seriously. Something you can actually do to get your community going, get yourself going, get your world going, get on with the show. The three elements I want to reflect in this are the bicycle, the idiot, and the citizen. Those three. Have you got them? The bicycle, the idiot, and the citizen. Why the bicycle? It's got wheels. They go round. They go round and round. So I'll have more to say about the bicycle in a minute, because it's a metaphor for how we learn things. There's a belief that we learn things by studying them, going to seminars, listening to stuff like this and whatever. But if you think about how you learned to ride a bicycle, it was not like that. You just got on the bike at some stage and it worked. It didn't work until you got on the bike. So there's no point even thinking about it until there's a bike there for you to play with. And that's it with money. We've got to get a monetary bike to play with that reflects the circular economy, reflects the way the world could work if we start using money that goes round rather than money just goes away. Now, I could detail all this stuff in arguments forever, and it's tedious. It goes on for forever. So I'd rather just sort of deal with the propositions as these are the premises I'd like you to entertain. I'd like you to entertain the premise that there's not a lot you can do about conventional money. I mean, in the national legal tender, the way the banks work, the way that corporations work with money, the way that money works in our world. I'm just suggesting that although that's a huge issue, huge problems, the specifics of it are really beyond you and beyond me. We can't do a damn thing about it. That's the bad news. It's also the good news. If you can't do anything about it, then don't. Forget it. Lay it aside, get on with something else. And that's the second part of the package. Although we can't do anything about conventional money, we can do a hell of a lot about money as a social community project, a process of community, a method of the biomimicry of our society rather than being totally driven by the conventional command and control cash economy systems. And then there's also the issue of why should we do this? What's the benefit? What's in it for me? What's in it for the community? And those are the idiot and the citizen. If you look up idiot and citizen on Wikipedia, you'll find out that they consider the word idiot derived from the early stages of the Greek society, where an idiot was just somebody who was looking after themselves. They were ids, identities, singular, looking after self, family, my business, my farm. I'm an id. I'm doing my idiot stuff. And we became citizens when we shift into looking after a wider agenda, when we take on a civic role of some sense. So the distinction between the idiot and the citizen is really the distinction between just looking out for yourself or seeing the wider picture. So I want to deal with why there's no point in dealing with money, what's in the community currency systems for idiots, and we can all be idiots inside the community currency system. It's a good thing to do. Idiots are just looking after themselves, but inside community currencies, that generates common wealth. It's a good game. And the third thing is that we have an obligation. We're in deep trouble as a planet, as a society, as a culture, as an economy. And it's us. We're doing it. We've got to turn this around somehow. And one of the most obvious things we've got to turn around is our sort of ecological externalities, the mess we make of the planet by our extraction and our waste and our dissipated energy systems and whatever. And so much of that has to do with the pattern of throughput economies. Grab it, push it through, trash it. Versus economies which have that biological, natural, cyclic convergence and internal coherence. So that's the proposition. A, you can't do anything about conventional money. B, you can do something to create your own currency systems. Dead easy. C, you got it. Sorry about that. We've got a job to do here, and this is one of the tools. And frankly, I think we should all be getting onto this package. Now, those are immense conversations. I could spend 3 weeks talking to you about all of that stuff, and we'd still be talking at the end of it. Or we could say, okay, on a general basis, they're worthy premises. Let's just jump into, so what do we do about it? What's the opportunity? And that's where I'm suggesting that the bicycle applies. You never learned a bike until you got on it. And you're never going to learn anything about community currencies until you're actually doing them. You can talk about it forever. You can draw charts, you can make up think tanks, you can do all sorts of stuff. But any form of engagement in the process seems to me to be the necessary precursor to actually taking it anywhere. So the emphasis of this event, my presentation of scattered data to you in a real hurry, is to convince you that it's worth exploring. Just the value of taking a look at it. There was Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, there's my French for the day, the guy who wrote The Little Prince, the stuff. He said, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. Now, as regards community currencies, man, I got the tools. I got the stuff. It's all down here. Come on. Yeah, you know, I can show you all this stuff, but unless you actually want to get out there, like unless there's a yearning for the endless immensity, you know, unless you can feel some light at the end of the tunnel, you're not going to play. Well, what I'm trying to show you is, here's some glimpses of light. And what I want you to do is take those glimpses and do something with them, for God's sake. Because they don't come every day. It's pretty miserable out there when you take a look around. Okay, that's the general package. And I'm going to rush this through. I'm going to try and just bang the theory stuff quickly so that we can get on with the decent Q&A. Any quick questions on my strategy? You get 30 seconds to ask a question, and then I'm off to the next thing. Oh, nope. Good, great. We've saved 15 seconds right there. Right, now I'm going to try and find my share now. Where did I put my shares? It's over here somewhere, I think. Yeah, it's got to be in here. Yeah, that would be it. And this would be it here. Well, the advantage now is that you won't have to look at me anymore. Once I've found which one I'm looking for, that one. And is it appearing? I'm just checking on my monitor. Yeah, here we go. Now, this is just the backdrop. This is what money normally is. We live in a bucket of money. You've got money coming in, you've got money going out. It's an in and out stuff. That's the way our systems work. But that's their money, it's not yours. The thing about the money that we use in the world is that it's constructed by major central institutions like banks or governments or whatever. And we, the poor peasants, just get to carry it, spend it, pray for the next flush of it. And so we're constantly living in a space where the critical factor for conventional money is when you spend it, it's gone. It's a strange thing to sort of make a point of, because I doubt if any of us have ever any doubt about that, you know. You got the money, you got the money. When you spend it, you got what you got, the hat, the haircut, the whatever. You don't have the money anymore. The money went. The money goes. That's what it does, you know? So we're totally used to the idea that money is this stuff that we have no control over, really. We just pray for it coming in. We handle it the best we can. When we spend it, it's gone. That's conventional money. And the truth of the matter is that that's just how it's built. It was always an emerged design that was supposed to be the valuable thing, which meant that the people didn't have to be valuable in themselves. The money was the valuable stuff. So when I've got it, I've got value. But when I spend it, I don't have it anymore. You've got the value. The value moves with the stuff, the money itself. Well, that's a good strategy for getting a store of value, substance sort of money to run your world and manage taxation and manage central government, all this sort of thing. It works like a hot damn, and you can see the results. But the thing that it leaves us with is constantly the money goes and we've got to find the next income. It's all about money goes out, money comes in. And that's really what this graphic is about here. This one, I've got to find my pen. This graphic in the center of the barrel and then a barrel between other barrels. That's what the world is for money. And there's nothing you can really do about that except survive better or worse. Now, our proposition, and here's the transition into what community currency can be, that it's also possible to imagine a money which is just like an up and down in a network of interacting players, a little tribe of people who've agreed that they're measuring their to and fro from each other, their transfers of goods, services, work, whatever. And in addition, perhaps, to using conventional money, they're also going to use their own local money, which is just like a credit union in a computer. It's just an up and down set of accounts. So when I spend money with you, you can spend it with Joe, Joe can spend it with Fred, but it can't leave that network. And it's basically just this oscillation of promises and performances, of gives and gets, of to and fro's, breathing in, breathing out. It's a simple sort of tribal self-resonating network. And the interesting thing is these networks can be any damn size you like. They can be 10 people, they can be 5, 10 people, they can be 50 people, they can be 50,000 people. There's plenty of evidence to suggest they can be as big as 5 million people and still have a very fine value in terms of containing activity, creating opportunities for people, making the world go round. And this is generally called mutual credit. Not a bad term, because it implies that it's an interaction between the people who are coming and going with it. We're all involved. It's a balancing act. And that's really the game of a biological system. It's always got this give and get, circulation and balance it out part with it. Unfortunately, our conventional money doesn't do that. It sucks value out. It makes us exploitative of each other. It fights against competition. But a community currency of a give and get, round and round, that's a whole different matter. And the key factor that you've got to look at with a round and round money is that it goes round and round. That is, when you spend a community currency in a mutual credit network, the money you're spending is going to move around that network. It goes to your friend, then your friend spends it with somebody else, and they spend it with somebody else, and they spend it with somebody else. Literally, what we spend comes back. The money itself becomes a circulating connector inside the community that is our new world, our to and fro. Now, from the idiot point of view, from my point of view, from what's in a community currency for me, the answer is lots of supportive balance in my world network. Instead of just being dependent upon how the cash comes and how I can survive with it, now I've also got this money that's, well, it's my expression of my work in the world and its reflection through other people's, and it's just this give and get, to and fro, round and round. Now you can measure these networks in dollars if you want to fit them into commercial and taxation, all that sort of thing. You can fit them into time systems. You can just say, this is not about dollars, this is about time. You can set up any currency you like with any value system you like, and then see what it does. Because it will connect different people in different ways. A church will work in one way. Maybe a school or a university would have its own currency systems that reflected its internal processes. Corporations will have their own internal currencies. A city of several million people will ultimately, in our expectation, have something in the region of several thousand mainstream currencies. This part of the city, this community of the culture, the musicians, the senior citizens, whatever. Lots of segmentations. And all of these are sort of mini tribal communities of give and get, to and fro. Like I say, I could talk about that for 6 hours, but I think it's probably a good opportunity to pause at this point and see if there's any questions on that specific area. The money goes away, this money goes around. That's the topic of conversation. Did you get it? Any questions?
Anyone? Sorry, can you come up here?
Not hearing that question. Can you speak it up a bit?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I'm just wondering, and I'm not an economist by any means, but is it just a question of scale, whether the money goes around or whether it disappears into a big bucket?
It's not a matter of scale, it's a matter of pattern. It's a matter of to what and to whom is the money attracted. And it's attracted to others than you. Let me put it this way. There are places where there's control of the money flow through, monopolization of resources, land value, all sorts of things. And so some people are making an awful lot of money out of money, just are. And who are they making it out of? Well, they're basically making it out of everybody else. It's like we're all on this elastic sheet, but it's got dips in it. And when you spend money, it rolls into those dips and disappears. It's just an outflow away from you because of the basic inequities that are built into the politics and the structure of this money. You ain't going to win. And even if we had a perfect banking system and lovely people running it, the same thing would still apply. Money would tend to flow away because it is an object of value in itself and people get very excited about it. And I talk too much. There's far too much theoretical abstraction about it. Sorry about that. I don't think it answered the question at all. You see, that's the reason why questions are no good. Any more before I roll into the next deal? No more questions on that. Okay. Well, I'm going to try and mention. I'm going to bring up a.
Michael.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about like the most vulnerable in our society. How, so quite often that can be a person who's very marginalized or has some difficulties in certain ways that would make it them, would this system make it easier for them, or could it actually exclude them more?
It'll include them multiply more. The present system exists by exclusion to exclude. Nothing more to it than that. It's an exclusive process. It's designed to separate and graduate and put gradients and stuff into it, and it works like a hot damn. You know, remember those graphs of who in America is wealthy and who is poor from a year or so back? They showed the scale of huge number of dollars for some and very few for others. That's what's built in. That's endemic to this mechanism called money. When you have a money which is a to-fro give and take in out breathing system, it basically takes up the slack, the avoidance and the externalities that are created by the conventional money. This picks it all up. Whatever's going wrong because of conventional money, this stuff makes a hell of a difference, and it certainly works to the advantage of the disadvantaged. You've got to believe that all the way. Now, you know, again, this is one of these things I could spend 3 hours explaining it all to you. One day you'll agree with me totally, but right now just go for it. It couldn't be worse than what we got. Okay. The circular economy. Now, it's. I'm going to have to bring up my own script on this because there's so many parts about it that are quite interesting. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation has been red hot on this business of circularity around materials and things. But they haven't yet really recognized how the circularity of money lines up the circularity of materials. If you think about it, when you went for a haircut or bought a loaf of bread or got your bike fixed, and you went from, there was a transaction between you and the bike shop or the baker, a good moved in one direction, the repair, the loaf of bread, the advice, the whatever it was you got from that transaction. What moves in the other direction is the symbol of acknowledgement, the money. So a loaf of bread, $3 or whatever it is, you see. So there's always this event of reality in the world, which is matched by a symbolic score. And in fact, you can look at the entire activities of your community from above and sort of map it like an anthill of millions and millions of transactions. And you can map it for the things that are happening, the loaf of bread or the haircut or the car being built or broken or whatever it is. You can map it for the events, or you can map it for the money that generally, almost 99% of the time, is involved in those events. And it's just that one is a map in this direction going in that direction, and the other is the map in exact form going in the other. They are reciprocals of each other. And the most powerful reason we've got to start using community currencies is to start enclosing our own, basically, abuse of the planet beyond our boundaries. Whenever we get materials in from another part of the world, we are exploiting transportation, labor, environmental limitations in other countries, and so on and so forth. They're just being washed out in the deal, and you get your shirt 20% cheaper because it came through that route. Well, our responsibility in that world is to stop drawing down the external world and stop drawing down our internal space, not just shipping out materials and resources and amenities, but being more contained, having a footprint of circularity and enclosure, and not just at the level of the state or the city or the region, but basically whatever we're engaged in, we should be looking at it in terms of, well, was my transaction here adding to the biomatter, to the biomass? Was it good in the entropic consideration? Or am I just another waster? Am I just trashing the planet one more time just for a cheap corner? And the answer is generally, of course, we've gone for the cheap one because all of us are short of money, funnily enough. Or at least if there's anybody there that's got a lot of money, just raise your hand, please. Somebody up there with a lot of money, just look around carefully. Somebody's twitching. No, nobody twitching. All right. So we're all struggling with this stuff. We're all struggling to get through it with the stuff that's being rained on us by drip, drip from above, the trickle-down effect of conventional money. Why don't we have our own money? Why don't we have a money that moves around and looks after our affairs and just works better? Flight from Inflation, EC Regal, the early edition. You've got it in the front row there. I can see it. It's good. Thing is, he wasn't much of a systems theorist, so we'll get back to him later. Reciprocal roofs. Who knows what a reciprocal roof is? I'm going to bring this up as a screen share. It's worth it. These are reciprocal roofs. And they're systems of building that work by small increments and the aggregation of support for support for support for support. The Western model tended to build the ridgepole model, two beams leaning on each other, and it's very unstable. It's very risky. These reciprocal roofs are ways in which the incremental support of a third party moves to the incremental support of a fourth, to a fifth, to a sixth, and then all of a sudden you find the world's working. And we've got to start thinking about our worlds and our economies in this sort of nature. Circularity, closure, and large-scale benefits. There's much to be gained from these things. I'm going to stop that share now because there's nothing else to say there. So I'd say that as citizens, we are obliged to get our act together. We cannot afford to continue trashing the planet one way or the other, either by our imports or our exports, by the degradation of our localities, by the way that we live in them. We've got to start looking after home base and living with a degree of responsibility, not just for the next generation, but the next 20 generations. And that means learning how to live in a cooperative world, and that means using cooperative monies. So there's a citizenship requirement here. So I'm going to lay that on you as an obligation. You guys get your act together. Start some money in Fremantle, in Perth, in Western Australia. You've got a good history of this stuff. You've done a fair bit of it before. You can do it again. And if it's not enough that you do it for the good of the community and the world and whatever, do it for your own sake. Money that goes around and comes back is a very useful thing to add to the world that you're living in. If you've just got money that you spend and it's gone, you've just got money that you spend and it's gone. So having additional currencies, a neighborhood currency, a regional currency, a currency for your professional set, a currency for your sport, culture, affiliations, these sort of things that just bind you to an affinity of like-minded or transactions where things just weave together and our commonwealth is enhanced. Why? Because we're not screwing each other. And the main reason the other stuff is such a bitch is that it basically causes us to go around screwing each other all the time. If we have a money that's based on consensual, collaborative behavior, it's going to work out better for all of us. So, those are the propositions. That's the bike I want you to get on. My proposition is that I could talk about that for weeks. We could talk about it for weeks. But you need basically to have things to play with that gives you a sense of what it is. And we've got lots of this stuff. We can set up currencies instantaneously for any little network or large network that wants it. It's not highly secure. We're not sort of advocating it as the basic answer to everything in the world. But in terms of exploring, we've got all the tools. We've got games, we've got simulations, we've got plans for sort of augmented drama, you know, games in space. You are your own avatar. You're responding to the game process through your phone and learning the system that way. But the key point is, if you want to understand this at all, if you want to see what's there for you, you got to do it. And that probably means exploring whether you want to do it. Is any of this believable at all? Is the carrot at the end of the rainbow real, or is this just another rainbow unicorn, you know? No, these are considerations. But you could stay with the considerations forever, or you can get on the bike. My grandfather was in India in the 1890s, and he wanted a bike because he'd seen the designs, but he couldn't get the bike built by the local blacksmith. The blacksmith said, "That will fall over. It is impossible to ride something with only two wheels. It can't be done." So he got a tricycle instead. He couldn't get another guy to build a bike. We're in the same sort of position in the world at the moment. People don't understand how easy it is to ride a community currency bike. And so there's huge anxiety about setting it up, the benefits, the payoffs, the costs, the consequences, and so on and so forth. The only way to find out is get in the bike and play with it. So that's where the proposition lies. So before I jump into what we're offering you in the short time available, any questions about the proposition? Money sucks. Money is good for you individually. Money is good for the community as a whole. Please.
I think in theory, I mean, it's very fascinating listening to you. What keeps coming into my mind is George Orwell's Animal Farm and socialism. And while the concept is good, human beings are by nature lazy and greedy. So what's to stop people parasiting off the system? And
for that, you'd have to find out more about the system. That is for sure. For a start, I don't believe that. You know, I know Orwell's a good writer, wrote good stuff. We find people more actually interested in collaborating, playing, especially if their persistent relationship inside the community depends upon them having good manners. That's really what it is, good manners. Greed and exploitation are not good manners. And people who play that way in the old game get to win, right? The wages of crime are really good. Yeah? Well, inside a community currency, it doesn't work that way. Somebody who's a jerk, who's a ripoff, who's a fool, who's an idiot, find themselves basically ostracized gently out the bottom of the system until they can redress their behavior. And that's another important thing, is they get to redress their behavior. No, I wouldn't worry about human nature. I'd worry about the way that we are playing with each other. If you change the rules of the game, then people play differently. And we're playing with a game set that's vicious and violent and exploitative. It breeds fear and corruption. So naturally, it manifests all these behaviors. And we don't have the tools to handle those behaviors. Well, a community currency does. It's quite fascinating. It both generates good behavior and eliminates bad. So try it and see. Like everything else, it's a game to be explored, because if you're imagining it without exploration, and you know, it's a dream. So I don't know where to go with this now, apart from what do you, yes, I do know where to go with it.
Can we ask another question, Michael?
Yes, you can, while I'm thinking and finding my way. Yes, please ask another question.
That's something to add. I think it's important to remember it's the sheer simplicity of these systems that are the effective, create the effectiveness of them. And
Could you repeat any of that? I didn't hear any of it, sorry.
I just find that we have so much fear around these systems, and actually it's the sheer simplicity of them which is, which is basically where their effectiveness lies. And we create so many rules around our current system, and we, effectively we have to contrive a system which is basically ineffective. We have to create all this, structure around something which is not natural,
Yeah, it's exactly the point. Structure around the unnatural. You have to try and contain the aberrations. Whereas if you have a design that's working in harmony with the elements, the permaculture model, then things fit because they're fit together the right way. Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Here we go. The links to all these things are all over that thing that I left with Andrew and you've got, so you can always pick up on this later. Now of Money shows how a bunch of individuals, oh wait, we're not on that screen share yet, sorry, it's not made it, here it is. This particular site, you'll find you can get to that through the Open Money site. The Open Money site itself is openmoney.cc, and it has all sorts of stuff about how to get to our materials, our demonstrations. And the indication on our demonstrations is that you look at this particular site, you'll find this shows up all over the place. Go look at the Now of Money. And the reason for the Now of Money, it's coming soon. Up on my screen, it may not be on yours yet. Man, that's slow. There it is. Now of Money shows how a group of people can just identify the idea of having a currency, give themselves account names inside that space. I'm waiting till I see the monitor showing this coming through. Monitor is very slow. This may not work at all. The monitor is now showing a bunch of identities around a space within which names have been created. These are the names of the accounts in the community currency. The relevant people on the outside, the identities, can associate themselves with many of these. You can have many accounts. You can have one account. You can have 23 accounts if you like. They're just names inside the space. But every name inside the space is associated with a real person, a real authentic person in the real world. Now, once you've got these names in the open money space, this is what this thing is, then you can start connecting them by any means you like, any currency you like. For instance, in this first graphic that I'm just expecting to show in a second, you'll see that the main accounts are all just linked by a dotted green line in the top one there. That implies that in the region of Fremantle, for instance, there's about 50 people have joined and taken out accounts, and 30 or something are using the Fremantle currency, which is the mainstream one for the locality. But in the graphic below, you can see that those same people can also be using, say, a red currency in the school set, blue one for the seniors, they maybe well, all sorts of different currency sets. No limit on the currency groups that can be formed. Now, I just wanted to implant that idea with you, that in a group of 1,000 people, in a group of 20,000 people, there can be many, many currencies, and they can be just emergent to fit the patterns of behavior that those people have with each other. And that each of us might expect to be in, maybe 2, 3, 5 currencies, because we have our work life, we have our family life, we have our social life, or whatever, you know, and each of these may have a slightly different aspect, and we wish to be associating with particular people in particular ways. And with this sort of money, we can fulfill all the transactions that we would possibly want, supplement them. We're not taking cash out of the world. What we're saying is that in addition to what cash and conventional money does, you can have this entirely new layer of to and fro funding going on between you. Now, 2 quickies. One is that there's an open money server, and you can go to that server and you can register an account as simply as, again, I'm waiting to see if this is moving through the system fast enough to be intelligible. There it is. And I'm going to register, let's see, FR. Let's be simple about it. If I wanted to create a currency community called FRFR, all I got to do is just name it, because the registration creates a name in that space, and then the currency exists. After that, all one has to do to have the other people join the currency I'm just getting this right here. Once you've created a currency, and it's just going to show that in a second, then anybody else who wishes to join, so like say somebody wants to register and be john.frfr.org, .cc. Now, that's going into the space of the FR that I've just created, and it hasn't done it yet. No, I was too quick. It should join John to that FR currency in one pass. Unfortunately, it hasn't done it. I'm going to try one more time with the next one, see if my timing was better. Go to this one. I'm going to register Joe.frfr.cc. See if this works. No, damn it. Didn't get that creation to complete. When the currency is created, it generally, and I should have set this up beforehand so that it did work, it would allow anybody in the room just to log into this one site, give themselves a name, and become parties to a community currency vehicle. Now, this doesn't involve you in any particular currency. It doesn't lock into any behavior. It doesn't limit the number of things you can do with it. It just opens the door and makes the patterning for multiple currencies available to you on the spot and in any form that you wish to have. So a time bank, a tool swap, a child care system, whatever it is, community supported agriculture, home care, all sorts of networks can be set up simply like I just tried to show you and failed, unfortunately. But it is that easy. It's just you got to go a little bit slower than I did. Now, the other thing we've got is a game. It's called Let's Play. And this weird graphic that has dots scattered all over the place is a critical element in how this whole information system works. The game is just a to and fro game. It's either anonymous online, or it can be done with a paper game, a game that looks like this on a card, trading card, and you have a room full of 20 people or 200 people, and you just play this game through with one card per player, and it's just a record of the to and fro transactions. Very simple rules. Rules of the game, there's only 8 of them, and they're very straightforward. We played this game with a room full of people from 8 years old to 80 and no trouble. The game's great, and it does explain exactly why conventional money creates rich and poor, and this is the rich and poor on the right-hand graphic. It shows how conventional money distributes in the way that the game is played. The left-hand graphic shows how the community money is working. And once somebody's played the game, then they begin to understand these graphics. And those are basically the feedback loops that makes so much of this work intelligible. So the games count. Last thing I'm going to show you is Kumu. Kumu is, let's see if this works. Kumu is a program that's developed by some guys on Hawaii to allow you to create meaning amongst different elements and to show relationships between them. And it's very, very rich. It can do amazing things to the management of information. And the only thing I would suggest is that you go to kumu.io and take a look at their work. Then you can get a free account and play with it as well. It's a fascinating piece of work. It allows you to create shows of all sorts of data, link them in different ways, show the interactions between them in a dynamic and flexible way. And I think that it's going to have an awful lot to do with the way that community currencies are displayed. I'm still waiting for this screen to shift. I'm going to shift to the next one anyway. These are just screens that I've been playing with briefly to work out how to start using Kumu. this last graphic I'm showing is a grid of X, Y coordinates, and it's essentially the same as that graphic I just showed you from our game space. The integration of our software with these elements is going to create a medium through which people can understand what they're looking at and make sense of it. And so I look forward to an integration between the Kumu elements, our software, and the theater of life, because basically this all comes down to you playing with it. It's not going to go anywhere unless you do. Okay, I'm now going to go back to the, if I can find it, how do I get out of this? Back to any little questions about the gamingness of it. So, having presented you with, we're screwed, you can get out of it like this. Here's the game to play with it. Is this,
Hi, Michael. Caroline. I've actually been playing with Kumu for a month or so now. So yeah, really liking the ease of use to, like, you create nodes and then create connections. And I've done one on like smarter cities, and just almost like I'm using it to sort of put all the things that I'm interested in, or people who I've met, and then sort of putting them all on the map, so then I can sort of go back and see the connections between things. And I think it can grow like abundantly. And with Kumu, it actually offers you like free up to about 200 nodes, so you can play with it. And there's lots of different like filters you can put on it, so you can see the information differently. And yeah, so it's good that you're also looking at that. And I think, yeah, it's a great resource.
well, I would encourage everybody who's interested in this sort of approach to meaning analysis, connectivity, revealing data, to talk with Christine and get a handle on what this shows, and take a look at their site, look at their demos, and start thinking about what this can help in this process of exploring this material.
Caroline's going to talk. You're going to talk about Kumu this afternoon a bit? Or?
Good. That's great. That's great. Good. Terrific.
I think we have another question, Billy. Anything? Andy? Yeah, Jordan.
Hi. I'm into really sensational displays of information, and currently this game is a bit lacking in that department. I'm just wondering, are there any moves towards creating more visually appealing things for this game? Because I mean, I'm really excited about the system of exchange, and I guess gamifying real life situations.
Absolutely.
And we're
our materials, many of them date back a long time, and they have to do with inadequate resources and capacities at particular times. Everything can be improved, and we are very interested in any improvement in the process of our software, our deployments, our information. I would also say that we don't just ask for freebies in that. We think that all open source activity can be refunded through open money. It's possible for people who are writing software for the common good to be actually rewarded from the common good. I'm not talking crypto coins or anything fancy like that. I'm just, when these systems kick in, they're going to do major things in the community in terms of shifting resources and outputs and business profits and all sorts of stuff. And one of the consequences of that is that we are going to be able to pay people very comfortably almost everywhere, you know, be localized in development initiatives all across the country, jointly coordinating and relating to international stuff as well. So gaming and the financing of gaming, I think, is going to be critical. I look forward to seeing anything that you can bring to that. Please, please do.
okay, cool.
Michael, thank you for all the information you've shared. I'm curious if you got any advice or strategies, tips in how to take idea of a local currency to the community.
Oh,
how
yeah.
to market it. Yeah, so it has like large scale traction where people take it up, and businesses as well. Obviously, that's part of the big aspect of it.
It's absolutely critical if you're going to make any inroads into the economy that it's relating to businesses. You know, the early LETSystems and time banks and stuff like that have related to a lot of haircuts and aromatherapy and small scale stuff. And that's great as far as it goes, but it's not going far enough at all. What we need is that you can buy your bread in the supermarket with a proportion of community money. You can buy beer in the pub with a proportion of community money. You can get your hair cut with a proportion of community money. You'll still need cash. You know, the grocery store needs 80% cash, 20% in the community money for its markup. The restaurant can do 50% cash, reservice the freezer after they've served the table, and take community money for the 50% markup. And it's only when we get into that space that this money will have any relevance or any significant relevance. I mean, it's got good social relevance. It's good social networking stuff at any scale. But hell, we've got to turn the planet around. We've got to turn our own communities around. We've got to make a dent in the local economies. And you're only going to do that when you've got something that the business wants. And it wants it because it's profitable for the business to be using community money. And it is. But you've got to persuade the business that it's profitable for them to use community money, because they are very risk averse. Businesses are terrified of almost everything, and rightly so, because they can go bankrupt in a flash and they're gone. So it's dicey business, which makes them rather nasty for the most part. So you've got to go to the business and say, here's a method where you can use a community currency and experience how its circularity, its simple circularity, patterns the economy that is your living. Because every business is existing in a context of a local economy or regional economy. And if the economy is booming, it's booming to some extent. If it's dry, they're dry. Well, here we're saying when the local cash economy might be dry, you can still have this community currency, and it's persistent, and it links you to the community. It links you to other businesses. It gives you an opportunity to pay your employees better, to support the community with better services, cooperative resources, and whatever. Tremendous things we can do with community money if we get into the businesses. So the question is really, how does one go to the businesses in such a way as to manage an effective installation, induction, and propagation that keeps them happy and cooking? We've got a model we call Community Way. Andrew knows a fair bit about it. It's designed not just to get the businesses happy, but it's also designed to make some good cause in the community happy. And it might be the church, the school, the hospital. It could be the Enkel itself. You could use Community Way to underwrite the financing of Enkel, to induce support from many other businesses in the region, but not support in cash. That's a hell of a job getting cash out of businesses. But if they're contributing their future time, their work, if they're giving essentially gift certificates on their business as part of the endowment of the Enkel project, and then the Enkel project can sell those credits to the general public dollar for dollar, then you've got cash in the project, you've got happy contributors who are supporting it, and you've got happy supporters who've given you cash and can now go to the businesses and spend their local money. We call this crowd changing. It sort of takes crowd sourcing that gave us crowd funding, and then it goes to the next level. The thing about crowd changing is that it doesn't just create a benefit for the target project, it creates a benefit for the people who make the change. Instead of just using cash and going straight to the supermarket and through, they're now putting cash into good projects in the community and getting a money which is a persistent circular lock-in to a circular economy. So you ask a short question, you get a long answer. Yes, you've got to get businesses in, and it's got to be done right. Another question?
How we go Yeah, I think we're out of time here, Michael.
I expect you are. I was watching the clock too. Can I have 30 seconds to wind it?
Yeah, sure.
Do it. Just bloody do it. Until you're on the bike, you don't know what this is about. You just don't. So you've got to play with it. Now, it's tedious, it's irritating, the graphics are no good, it's senseless at times, it'll drive you crazy, but do it. That little slightly screwed up demo I gave you, you do that one, and you can have 40 people engaged in a little play space in no time. And that's the point. People have got to play to get this, because it's only through that sort of hands-on experience that you can make anything out of it. So my purpose here was just to stimulate excitement, not to make any sense of it. You can't make sense in this short time. But I hope I've been able to raise you to the point of thinking, maybe this is a good giggle. Maybe there's some value in this. Maybe this can pay off. Maybe there's something worth playing with. Because hell knows, there's not a lot worth playing with out there these days. So you might as well have a good one. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Sorry about the technical goofs, but I'm a solo operator and all the pieces fall apart too fast. But I'll be back.
Thank you very much.
Afternoon session just to hang in and see what you got to say. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks very much, Michael.
I'll say good night.
I don't remember what's happening. Can I stop talking? So there's a short break now.